There we go.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, man, how are you?
Good. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you okay. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I was just having trouble finding you on the actual search.
You know what? It's because I realized we weren't friends yet.
Ah, okay. There we go. Oh, man. Well, yeah, it's nice to have you here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I just kind of give you a little bit of background
Yeah.
of what this channel is about. So, I started this almost 2 years ago, but the whole point of it is bringing people like you and talk about entrepreneurship,
Okay.
and because the whole channel is mainly about personal finance, right? But as you're whatever stage of personal finance you're at, people might be saving up money, they might be investing,
Right.
or they might be, ready to jump into that entrepreneurship journey like yourself. So that's
Yeah.
part of the reason I thought you'd be a great guest to join here. So
Okay. No, I appreciate
um,
it, man. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. So I guess let's touch a little bit about what was what was your well, I guess introduce yourself and yeah, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I'm Hector Garcia. I'm owner of Oso Coffee Shop here in the East End. I'm actually in the shop right now. This is one of the back walls that everyone loves to Instagram in front of, just because it has all our icons and everything on it. And yeah, we've been. I found this property about 3 years ago, and um, and we've been working on it for the past 3 years. And I can go into that into more detail, like on the financial part of that when we get to that, whenever you're ready. But that's how I am right now and what I've been up to. I also own a small design agency called New Creative, and that's what's been paying the bills for the shop. It's actually funded the shop up until now, along with personal loans from friends. Actually, not even loans. Like a lot of friends have just been giving to the shop, so that's been kind of cool.
No, that's awesome, and I've
Yeah,
we had the opportunity to visit quite a few times there, and
yeah,
it's one of those. On a personal level, I love it because it's one of those community coffee shops where everybody kind of, you bring the whole community in, and I love that. I love that vibe and everything. But
yeah. Thank you.
kind of taking a step back,
Mhm.
what was your relationship with money growing up, Hector?
Um, it's funny you ask because one of the things that sticks out. So I grew up in a middle class family. My dad was he worked in like the metal industry, but on the coding side of it. So I remember being 7, 8 years old, him taking us to his shop that he worked for a company. So he was the guy that anytime you see metal that's chrome plated, gold plated, any kind of plating, he did that kind of stuff. And then my mom, she did a bunch of various jobs, but we were always well off. Like we weren't poor, we were middle class. Um, I don't ever remember like there not being food in the fridge or anything like that. But my parents definitely worked hard, and then my dad died when I was 10. So then from that age on, I mean, I noticed my mom just bust her ass to take care of the house and make sure we had everything we needed. But then I look back, man, and I remember me, even as a young kid, I was always, I guess I was just born with just being, I hate using the word hustle a lot because I, I don't know if that's what it was, but just the entrepreneurship. I mean, the even as a little kid, before I could push a lawnmower, I was just finding ways to like make my own little money. Um, and that's how it's been ever since. Like I remember being in high school, I never really had to ask my mom for money because I was either making money doing people's homework, cutting lawns, or doing something, to make my own money.
Yeah,
So,
no, I mean that it's pretty admirable, man. Yeah.
nah, I mean, I think maybe it had to do with just the situation that I was growing up in and then losing my dad. But I think it's just ingrained in us too as Latinos to be workers like that. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this lately about this whole
Yeah.
hustle culture, right? And for a lot of communities, right, regardless of color, but it's a socioeconomic thing, right? So you've always had side hustles, quote unquote.
Hmm.
I
Right.
mean, now it's Gary Vee and all this, YouTubers. They make it seem like it's something amazing, but hey, it's always been there. Like, you know, I
Yeah,
know, you know, family members sold, you know, tamales or whatever it is to, you know, the weekends to make a little extra cash, right? But no one
right.
really call it, you know, side hustles. But I'm glad that, you know, you had that entrepreneurship spirit since early on. And just
Yeah,
kind of talk to me a little bit about how do you got into your print business? Because if for everyone that's watching,
yeah,
he's at his coffee shop at the moment and all the prints are from your shop, right?
right. So like any of the branding, okay, let's just take this wall for example. So, man, I'm gonna have to back up to like the late '80s to the early
No,
'90s, bro.
go as back as you want, man. Yeah.
So after high school, I went straight to college. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to U of H. And while I was in school, I remember, for those of you, this is where I'm dating myself. Those of you, we used to have this thing called a newspaper, like a physical paper thing that we would open up and like, so it was called the Green Sheet, and it was a free newspaper. And the Green Sheet was the paper you would go pick up mainly for the classified section, just jobs or whatever, for stuff for sale, garage sales. So I remember going through, I was looking for a part-time job while I went to school. And a little bitty ad, and it said, window tinter needed, like glass tinter needed. Will train, and then had a phone number. That's it. Call the number, go meet the guy. He was from California. We hit it off immediately. He was a little Filipino dude, again, hard worker. He taught me how to tint glass, car windows, and then that was my that was my main source of income for years, tinting cars and tinting commercial buildings and stuff like that. So at the same time, I mean, in that same vein, I learned how to cut vinyl. So all these little decals you see on the wall are from a vinyl cutting machine. And through those years of glass tinting, I also learned how to apply vinyl to windows and stuff because it was kind of in the same avenue of work. So there's that. And then later in the late '90s, I was forced to learn graphic design. I worked at a church. Believe it or not, I used to youth pastor in the late '90s or mid to late '90s.
Interesting.
So
Yeah, many ads.
so we had to create our own. Well, the youth department was always that department that never got a lot of resources. So I was like, well, man, I'm going to learn graphic design myself, design our own flyers, stuff like that. I remember getting my hands on the very first version of Photoshop. It was called something else, and then a couple of other programs. So that was in the mid to late '90s, all the way up until now. Well, back then was the beginning of me learning design and graphics, and then I loved it. I enjoyed it. I've always had a creative side to myself, and that's what stuck. And then that turned into a business later on in the early 2000s, and I've been doing that ever since. Created a small agency. The peak time was around mid to late 2000s. Because that's when print was still heavy. It was before a lot of digital stuff took off. So there was a lot of money to be made in just printing, like printing magazines, business cards, flyer, anything print related. And so now all of that stuff that I've learned, it's funny, like it's coming in handy, even with my own business. So everything in the shop, from branding to graphics, the sign you see on the back on the video, it looks backwards, but for everyone watching, it's pronounced like "rah," like the sound of what a bear would make, because the name of our coffee shop is Oso, which means bear in Spanish. All the way from painting, getting it cut somewhere else, then painting it, mounting it to the wall. Yeah, it's funny. We basically built this place with our own hands. That was a lot of info. I think I dumped a lot of info on everybody,
No,
right?
no, no, that's fine. But so before you started like your agency, right? What was the process of that, or was it that you mentioned you're working at the shop with the window tint while at the same time learning how to cut vinyl, etc. So at what point did you decide that okay, this is a viable business, and what was kind of the journey there?
Yes, I've always again, I know I was born with an entrepreneurial spirit. So if I enjoyed something enough and I knew I could make money at it or make a living, then I would attempt to create a business doing that. So I did that with the glass tinning. So even though I learned glass tinning under someone and I worked for him, I eventually ventured off on my own and started my own glass tinning company. Uh, that lasted several years, and then that and graphic design kind of overlapped a little bit. Um, and then another business that overlapped with that was construction, because I've grown up around sheetrockers, painters, wood guys. Because remember, I'm Mexican. That's what we do, right? We're all we're all sheetrockers. Uh, but the graphic design is what I gravitated to the most, and it was a job that wasn't requiring a lot of manual labor. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on this one, and I just dove into it. A lot of late nights, just perfecting the craft and learning programs. Um, and I still remember I still had another job, but it started with one person saying, "Oh, you do graphic design? I need some business cards made." I'm like, "Oh, I'm your guy. I can do business cards." And designed business cards, found a printer. That was like my first little job. It felt like, okay. Then that person refers you to another person, and then that's how it happens. Just for the longest, yeah. Here's what's crazy, bro. For the longest, I never had to advertise, never had to promote. All my customers were my promotional tools. Like they were my marketers, and then it just built up, boom, boom, and then next thing you know, I'm like, okay, I got to create a little business, and now I need more designers. So then I created an agency, really very small. It's always been like very boutique. And then I would go find, well, once you get in the design world, you meet other designers and artists. So I'm like, oh, you do websites? Man, I got a church that needs, $5,000 website. You're in, like, that's how it happened. And then when I would pick the best people that were in each little field, like design, web design, so forth. And then I would just work with those guys mainly. So if a client came and said, "Hey, we need this or that," I'm like, "Oh, we can do it." I never said no to anything. I was like, "I'll find someone that can do it." And that's how it started. Just one little project, referral, never saying no to anything, finding someone that can do it, and then you just keep growing and growing. I remember one time someone needed some 3D work. I don't know 3D. I've never even wanted to learn it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I can find someone. I found some dude in Europe somewhere. And this is when like Facebook had just started. So I was able to find people. And and that turned into a couple of projects.
Gotcha. Did you have like a full-time staff, or was it mainly, someone brings a new project, the right person, and you kind of,
Yeah, I always kept things pretty lean, man. Like, I would always see these big agencies, like they had their own building, their logo was on the building. I wanted to be that, but at the same time, I was a little scared, and I loved just being the size that I was. There was only one little period of time where like just web was new, just design in general was at its peak before there was a lot of DIY stuff like coming available on the internet. I had a couple of people that were almost like full-time, but for the most part, I would just farm out work. It was easier that way. And anyone trying to run a design company right now, I would tell them, look, there's no need to have a videographer, photographer, 3D guy on staff to where you're struggling trying to figure out how to keep them paid. Just find the best contractors, build relationships with those guys, and then you just pull them in as you need them. Because there's going to be periods there where you don't need a videographer.
Exactly.
But then a client will come in like, man, we need this big video, this, and I'm like, oh, we got it. Then you just put a team together, and when they're done, then they go. And those contractors are also doing their own little work. So it works for everybody.
Gotcha.
So,
How do you approach that? Let's say you have a videographer and then another guy that does design, right? And maybe you get a client that needs, both video but also a website, right? How
right.
does it normally work as far as like, who's gonna get compensated, or like what percentage?
Okay. So, all right. So I'll just use a specific client as an example.
Sure.
We have a client, and I'll promote them too. They're actually a great company. They're called, the name of the business is Triple Crown Bingo. So they're like a really cool bingo hall. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, right, corny? But you go in this bingo hall and there's food. They let you bring your own alcohol. There's screens everywhere. There's music. Like, it's kind of cool. They approached us. They needed some design work, but then they wanted like a whole bunch of videos done over the course of a year. So me and my partner, Steve, I have a good friend, by the way, that helps me with a lot of the design. We're like, all right, well, we'll take on this graphic design part. We'll do some of the video, but we're going to hire this guy and this guy who we've used in the past. In fact, one of them even came all the way down from Austin for a project. We'll let them do their thing, do what they do best. We give them a little bit of direction. Hey, we need a 1-minute video. They come film, do the editing, any titling work. Now with the internet, we can proof stuff over the internet. We make edits and they deliver a final product, and then we're done with the video guys. And then me and Steve, we just continue to do the graphic side of it. So that's kind of how it works. Is, if you got a good team, man, everything can just be like really simple. So my motto is bring in guys that are good at what they do, and yeah, you're gonna have to pay them, but we know the industry well enough where we know what to charge a client and still be able to pay a videographer, and then the business still make a profit.
Gotcha. With terms of pricing, as you were growing your business, you mentioned, you're familiar with how much it's going to cost them, right? But
Right.
was there some point where you were struggling to figure out how much to charge? Like, let's say, especially earlier on, if someone from church asks you to do something, right? Like,
Right.
I find that I'm struggling with that myself right now with pricing for my business, and
Okay.
I wanted to get your insight on that.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So I had to learn that over the years, because here's what everybody does. Everyone wants the gig, right? The job. Like, say someone comes in like, hey man, I need a website design. But I'm getting 2 other bids too, by the way, but I'd love for y'all to bid on this project. Well, everyone really wants that work, right? Especially if like you need the money.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone's tendency is to just quote the bare minimum, right? Almost kind of neglecting what they know they're really worth.
Sure.
And that used to be me all the time, just not really lowballing jobs, but just being safe. Then over the years, as I've gotten better and better at what I do, and I know that anything we create is going to be quality, I learn my worth and I learn what my hourly rate should be, or we're definitely not that company where you go, hey, I need a logo. I got a couple of $100. I'm like, man, like you're way off, bro. Like that's why they have places now like Fiverr and stuff like that. But if you need not just a logo, but you want a brand created, which includes logo and a bunch of other stuff, then we can help you. And then this is where we're at. But for the beginner, the single person, not single like as in marriage, but like the guy who's just operating as one person in his business, figure out what your time is worth. So let's just say, for example, an entry-level graphic designer who is going to go get a job with a company and is just going to receive hourly pay. Usually they're going to be somewhere around the $15 to $20 range. That's working for a company full-time. That's your hourly pay. You're going to get insurance and all this other stuff. But you compare that to a guy who is or is a contractor working for himself. He needs to figure out like, okay, I'm not an employee anymore. Now I am the business. And if that guy's a pretty decent designer or even videographer, photographer, the starting range is 25, 50 an hour, like entry. And if you're really good at what you do, then you're up in $75 to $100 an hour rate. And I'm just talking hourly rate. Like I'm not even talking like big, because like when we quote a project through New Creative, we rarely do like an hourly rate. We know what a project's worth, and you could break it down by hour, but that's not how we operate anymore. But for the starting designer or creative, just figure out where you are in that, and then stick to that. Figure out what you're worth, stick to it. You may have to turn down jobs because you don't want to be that. If you don't want to be that $200 logo guy, then don't be that guy. Turn that work away and leave room for, oh man, like, okay, you need a logo? Well, our projects start at like 2,500 and up, or I'm just throwing out numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just basically know your worth, basically, right?
Yeah, figure out your worth and figure out what the standards are in the industry, and then be honest with yourself on where you feel you're at, and then go from there. Find a starting point and then just work your way up.
Do you find that you have your client, like your ideal client? Right now, like you mentioned, I'm struggling to find, who my, let's say, my quote unquote audience is, and I think I'm getting there. But did you have to identify, who your clients are, and maybe have to say no to that $200 logo?
Man, you just learn that over time. Because again, remember, I was that guy that was just, I would take any job. And then you learn from your mistakes. Like, oh man, I should have charged more for that project. It's going to take time. Like the young person who's just jumping into it, you're going to just have to make mistakes. Or you might be smart enough to know, like, I know what I'm worth. I know where I want to be. This is where everything is going to start. Anything below that, I'll find other little designers that don't mind doing those little bitty projects. And you can either just send them their way, or that's another level of business there. You could be like, hey guys, look, I don't want to mess with these kind of little projects. Or that guy that's on Facebook that just throws out, need a logo, send referrals. People would tag me in that stuff, bro, and I never reply. I'm like, already I know that's
insulting.
Already I know that's the guy that wants to pay. He has $150 budget, and I don't want to mess with him. But there might be guys hungry for work, so you're like, say, hey, look, when stuff like this comes in, I'm going to feed it to you, but I need 10%, like a referral fee or something like that. Like, don't be afraid to do that, because it's business, and the work came through you, and you didn't want it, but you want to give it to someone else. There's nothing wrong with being like, hey, I'm gonna feed you some work. I just want a little commission off the top for like a referral fee, and then that leaves you room to stay, and you know the quality of clients that you want to work with, and you just start there.
You mentioned earlier, so you've always had a creative side, right? And you also touched about, what's the expectation for a up and coming, designer and creator as far as, hourly rate, right? But
right.
For those of us that are still working, a 9-to-5 job, and you have that idea, you have that creative side too. What would be your advice? Because I know a lot of us, you touched on it earlier. You stick with jobs because of one, it's comfortable. Two is you know what to expect, and three is healthcare and benefits, right?
Yeah.
But if you have the entrepreneurial spirit, and at some point you have to pull the trigger, what would your advice be?
To someone who has like a good job and they're struggling on whether to step out on their own?
Yeah, let's say they're doing a side hustle right outside,
yeah.
And they're just maybe there's some fear or whatever it is. So I think I have a personal belief that everyone's creative and everybody
Yeah.
has some sort of, passion project that they're working on. But
Right.
a lot of times is, maybe you work too much at your full-time job, right? You don't get the time to do it. People are burned out. There's traffic. So by the time you get home, you just don't want to do anything, right? And it's a
Right.
repeated cycle. But yeah,
Right.
what would your recommendation be to someone who's they have an idea or they have something but they just don't know how to approach it?
Yeah. So, man, there's a couple of things there. Like I've seen guys have a little side business. They have a good job, but let's just say they like building lawn chairs. I'm just thinking of that. And they're kind of creative with their lawn chairs, and like someone will buy one here and there, and maybe there's a period where that person feels like, oh man, I'm selling more and more lawn chairs, but it's not enough to, like, say you're right here with your full-time job and that lawn chair is making this much money. Until that business is equal or more, uh, I don't suggest anyone just like quit their job unless they can really turn something into a business. And again, sometimes it involves asking people that are close to you, like, hey man, be real honest. What do you think about my work or about this little side hustle I have? Do you think it has legs? And honest friends would tell you, man, it's cool, but nobody's gonna want that. Or you'll be like, man, you know what, bro? Like this is taking off. Like, yeah, I see there's potential here. And so there's that side of it. Then there's the other side of, I'm trying to think of examples of myself. Like, there was a period where there was a slow period for me. I had just gotten divorced and just my life was just kind of in limbo for a little bit. So I took on a job with another agency and they were paying me like really good money. But there's that entrepreneurial guy in me that enjoyed working for himself. It's hard for me to like work for someone, to be honest. So I worked with this little agency for a while. I mean, this was back in like 2011, and remember, I was still doing some of my own work, but this company was paying me like 50 grand a year. And it wasn't even about the money, dude. I didn't last long there because I wasn't happy. Like I would be in the office over there already rebranding my design agency and building my website on company time. I was making plans to like get out because I just wasn't happy. So there's going to be that guy that's like, man, no matter what they pay you, you're just not happy. And even if you're making less money, it's more important to some people to be happy in making less than to be unhappy and making good money, having insurance and all that other stuff. Which I say all that to say this: at the end of the day, I encourage people to go after what makes them happy. Like life's too short, man, to just be punching in on a time clock, working for someone else, making them money. That's why you see artists, you have the term the struggling artist. There's a lot of artists out there, they might be struggling financially, but I know a lot of them, man, that they're happy. Like they love what they do, man. They just need very little to survive. But you hang out with these guys and they're happy. Like they're enjoying their life. So there's a lot of pieces to all of this stuff,
Yeah, we tend to measure success on monetary value, right? But people don't. As I get older, I value more my free time. Like time is everything. So you mentioned life flies by. I remember working here for the last professionally last 12 years now, and it's just flown by. I remember when I was younger and everything. So anyways, you made a point earlier about asking someone your honest feedback, right? And I've come to see that as a twofold, because a lot of the things that I'm doing, I actually don't share with my close, family members, etc. Because I realize a lot of us have a very limited mindset, and if I see someone that looks like us, if I saw someone that looks like me, because I don't believe in myself or because I have imposter syndrome, whatever it is, I tend to reflect that upon you. So like
Mm.
part of it is like, sometimes I'll rather ask someone that I don't know, like in kind of, those networking events, etc. Because
Right.
sometimes other people that don't know you are the ones that support you the most. And I find that kind of
Yeah.
counter, it's a counterintuitive, but it's a fact. And
Okay.
what do you think about
Like,
that?
so you're saying like, yeah, your family and can sometimes be
Yep,
your worst critic
correct.
because they don't see like the big picture or like the full vision or anything like that.
Exactly.
And like some family, like in terms of like parents a lot of times just want you to. My mom, for example, I mean, she's 84 years old. She's seen me the ups and downs of working for myself all the time. I would hear, Mio, why don't you just find a good job and that has benefits? And but she comes from old school where you stuck with a job for 20 years, retired, got your pension.
Yeah.
This is a different generation, different era. Um, yeah, depending on the industry that you're in, like, remind me, what industry do you work in?
I work in the, let's say, IT.
Okay, so I'm sure there's a huge community, right? Like the IT community that you can bounce, that you can trust, and
Yep.
like let's just say, for example, some big company approaches you and wants to offer you a job. You can talk to some of the closest people in your IT community. Say, man, what do y'all think, man? This is what they're offering. This is what's involved. Y'all think it's worth it? And then your community be like, oh man, they're paying you that much to just do that kind of work? Yeah, jump.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in my industry, there's a lot of little communities. You just got to know who to trust. Always just have one. Here's the thing too. So I never do this, and I see people do it all the time. They'll throw stuff like on the internet. Hey, these are the two logos I'm considering for my company that the design agency sent to me. What do y'all think? And just all these non-creative people just, what I'm saying, commenting on something they shouldn't even be commenting on. Throw it out to people that are in a very small circle for you that you trust, and just trust that you're getting good advice from those people. It's tough in the design industry, man, to tell someone like, hey man, you're just your work's not that great. Like, because I was telling this to someone the other day. The design industry is tough, especially right now, because there's so much DIY stuff, right? With your phone, you can design, create videos, do all kinds of stuff. Yeah, the tools are there, but you could give that same tool to a creative and someone who's not that creative, and you're not going to get the same thing. Some people are born with just a natural ability to create in terms of design, graphics, stuff like that. I know people that went to school for 4 years and got a degree, and just they're not that great at it. They just don't have it. And then I know other guys that are self-taught, and man, they're making top dollar, and they don't owe any college debt or anything like that. There could be a difference there, and you just got to figure out like where your place is.
I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about, those artists, like, people that they're not really in a rush. Because at a personal level, I feel like, you're in a race, right? And that's what they call it, a rat race. But you feel like time is running out, you're getting older and whatnot. But I realize, like, same in my industry, right? You see guys that had a history background, but then they took a coding boot camp, and now they're really amazing programmers, and they're better than those that were there for like 10 plus years. So I find that really interesting that a lot of people are figuring out kind of what they're interested in, right? Versus when you're younger and the whole push is to just get a career, start with something.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't really ask yourself, what is it that I really want, right? And you just went with the first thing that came up because you thought it might bring money, and maybe you weren't as creative as you thought you were, So, but anyways,
and sometimes that stuff comes naturally, right? Like, so we do a lot of design, and I'm okay with like that much code,
Yeah.
but then I pass it on to someone else. Um, you'll figure out what you're good at. Like I got into a little bit of web design, but I knew like, man, this is not fun for me. In fact, it's very stressful. I hated it. I like the design side of web development, but not the coding side. So then I find guys that are like great at that. But I remember I knew a guy like maybe 10 years ago. He would design websites on the code side. Like he'd be there typing code and building the sites. You know the difference, right, between like visual and text view?
Yep.
He'd be in the text view just boom, boom, like, and the way he described it is like, I'm like, bro, you're in the matrix right now.
Yeah.
Like it just ones and zeros. He's like, yeah. He's like, but I'm typing all this code and I see it. And then he'll go to, you know, preview and it's a freaking whole website.
Yeah.
So that guy realized at some point, like, man, I love this and this is what I'm good at. I realized I don't love that side of the design world and I'm gonna stay away from it. So I think people will figure out like what they're good at, what they love, you know, what they enjoy. Like, do you enjoy the IT work that you do? Because you've been doing it for such a long time, right?
Yeah, so I started doing IT and now I do cybersecurity. And now
Okay.
I'm interested in real estate and the entrepreneurial world. So that's kind of where my interest is shifting personally. Okay. Yeah.
But see, that's good. We evolve. Over time, man, if I made a list of all the stuff I was involved in, bro, you'd be like, wow. But that's good because you're going to find your groove. Or, you know, I think we go through seasons too.
Yep.
Like it's not a bad thing that you've been doing IT for this long and now you're cybersecurity, but now you have an interest in this over here. And just by you doing this, you're kind of making a shift on your own. Like you're being proactive about it.
Yeah, and I had a realization. I think part of it is, you know, kind of pushing people to do college, which I don't have a problem with. I still would encourage if you can't, just get it for free. Just don't get in debt. That was my only advice.
Wait, what was it? What was that called that you mentioned?
The call? You became muted, but what I'm saying is I became to the realization that you don't have to align. You don't have to be, you know, Pablo the IT guy, right? Even if you went for accounting and maybe you're okay with accounting for the first 5 years, a lot of people, they want to stick around because they feel like they invested, you know, that maybe they still have college debt, right? But they feel like they should stick there. And now they become, you know, their job becomes their identity. And that's one thing that I realize and I'm trying to detach myself, right? Like if I look at you, right, it's not, you know, Hector, you know, he could be the designer. He could be the animal activist, right? You know, take care of the pets and stuff like that, right? Or you could be, you know, coffee shop, you know, connoisseur. You know, I feel like people are very it's not only very single kind of, you know, view, right? Totally. You have various interests and various things that you're like, so don't limit yourself to just being the IT guy, right?
Exactly.
Or the designer. So
anyways. And sometimes people are afraid to do more than one thing because they feel like, man, I'm not being focused or I'm being ADD. But I think you just mentioned it well, like we have a lot of interests and it's okay to just do all these things. Like even though I'm opening up a coffee shop, when I was building out this coffee shop, I was getting jobs, paid commissions to build like mobile coffee bars for people because they liked my coffee bar that I built. So I'm like, okay, that'll be $3,500. And I'm inside my coffee shop that needs to be built out, but I'm using like this area here to build a coffee bar for a client or a dog house or, you know?
Yeah.
I was trying to pay the bills, so I was taking on anything. But I enjoyed it. So at the end, so you're venturing out into stuff that you actually enjoy, right? That's fun for you. Yeah.
And now, I feel like now I have that opportunity, right? Because in the past it was more about, you know, how do I pay the bills? How do I do that, right? And now that I'm a little bit more comfortable in that sense, now I feel that is more about I'm trying to buy my time back. So,
Yeah.
you know, like my long-term thing is to retire early, quote unquote,
Okay.
and just work on passion projects, right? Like, you
Yeah.
know, working on giving back to the community, spending more time, you know, making impactful things, right? More
Right.
so than chasing the money, because I think that's you know,
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are in that stage, and you know, I don't blame people, right? We all got to pay bills and mouths to feed, but
Yeah.
I guess one thing about that, I thought about you mentioning your mother and yourself in general. I guess as an entrepreneur, how do you plan for retirement, or how do you know, fund that, or what's the thought there in general?
Yeah. So I'll admit, man, I did not do a good job planning for retirement. And I just turned 50 in May. Um, this coffee shop is actually me barely planning for retirement. So I spent all my life just having fun. There was a period there where I got back into BMX in the late 90s, and I spent 10 years of my life just working, design industry, having fun, and I would spend a lot of money promoting and doing these big BMX events, right? Thinking that it would turn into something, and it never really turned anything. And when I look back at it, I'm like, I was just doing that for fun. Uh, as I've gotten older, I realized, like, shit, I need to save or invest or do something. So then I got into coffee, and then I realized at one point, I'm like, you know what? I need to really focus on this, because this is just going to be one of several other either coffee shops, or, you know, I'd love to own like a small little bar concept. I have a lot of ideas, right? Uh, but now I'm 50. I'm like, okay, I need to start planning for retirement. So for example, I want this coffee shop, once it's up and running, like, it needs to be able to run on its own, where I don't have to be here all the time, so that I can spend time building the other concept that will also run on its own, and then another one. So this is my retirement plan, I guess, the beginning of it.
No, I mean
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. We don't think about it, man. Like, and I know a lot of people that have not done a good job of planning. So,
well, I mean, at least from what I know about your place and everything, it seems like it's headed that way. As far as, you know, now you're
I
adding
hope so.
kitchen, you're adding a few things, so I'm sure it'll be successful. And I
Yeah.
think
Thank you.
you have quite a bit of community that's very supportive, and I'm sure, you know, everybody will
Yeah.
help you out with that, you know,
No,
venture.
everybody's been great, man. Like, even you guys coming in, like, I love just meeting new people. People will come in, and I love the look sometimes when people come in and they're looking around. They're like, man, this place is so cute, you know. And I'm like, man, thank you, because I've enjoyed building this out, and I've enjoyed it so much that it didn't bother me being here. I would say literally for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, it was me working the design company during the day and on the shop at night, like telling friends, man, I can't go out this weekend. Hey, Hector, you want to come out? We're doing this. I can't. Like, I'm working. Tonight I'm jackhammering the floor to build a wheelchair ramp. Like, surprisingly, they keep asking me to go do stuff, even though I kept turning them down.
Yeah.
But I just looked at it as like, man, I gotta get it done. There'll be a point where I can, like, breathe and be like, okay, now I can play a little bit.
And
So
I think that's I guess for you that are watching, or if you're replaying this later, I think, you know, be supportive to your friends and family, right? Like, you never know, because
yeah,
there's potential business opportunity for yourself as well, right? So
yeah,
if someone's declining or something, like, hey, maybe, hey, can I help you out, right?
yeah.
And you just never know.
You know what this taught me, bro? This coffee shop. It definitely
Mhm.
it the past 2 years have definitely humbled me, and here's an example why. Because I never looked for this, right? Like, it just would happen. We're working on the shop. I have a friend that I knew from back in the 90s. In fact, I used to be his youth pastor, right? So he was a little teenage kid back then. Now he's a grown man. He has his own construction company. I'm here working in the shop. He messages me. He's like, hey, Hector, we have like a week off because we're waiting on approval for this big job. So if you need us, we'll come and just volunteer our time. I used to say no to that stuff because I didn't like taking like free stuff. I'm like, bro, I totally use your help. You can help change some siding and this and that. So he comes, he brings one of his helpers. That day he says, hey, I'm going to go get paint and all this other stuff. We're going to paint the whole outside of the shop for you.
Wow.
I'm like, what? And again, I didn't say no. I'm learning to just accept gifts, right? Like that. And he's done that on more than one occasion. And bro, I have so many stories. I got to write them down because there's so many little stories like that of people coming in or surprising me. And this is when they knew I was trying to raise money for the shop. And I'm looking over here because I see my register here. They'll come, they'll register, and they just buy coffee and some pastries, and then put a $500 tip. I'm like,
Nice.
what? So what that has done over the past couple of years has taught me to now look for opportunities to like bless other people, like because I've had so many people give to me and like donate to this cause that all that has done is made me want to find other causes to help. So my advice to anyone out there in the business world, it's like, even if you don't have those kind of stories yet in your life, be that guy, be that young guy that I just mentioned who offered his whole week painting the coffee shop. You be that guy first if you have to, because that's going to bless someone. And that person's like, dang, now I feel like I got to go help somebody. And it can just be this big, crazy cycle. But yeah, it's definitely humbled me, man. And I look for opportunities now, if I can afford it, to like help somebody else.
Yeah, instead of feeling pressure with social media and, fake things like,
Yeah.
go out through your friends and, go volunteer your time for causes that you're really, interested in, right? That are passionate about.
Yeah.
So two more things and
Okay.
we can wrap up just being in the,
Okay.
interest of time. What's your money motto, if you have one, or your money mantra?
My money mantra? Well, give me an example of one. Do you know
Like,
of one?
For me personally, that's why the name of the channel is Abundancia Mindset, because
Yeah.
the world is abundant, right? Everything.
Yeah.
So the way I picture is, a big piece of cake. Well, if we're talking about, money, you have a big cake and, maybe your Bezos, your whoever, they have a decent size of the cake, but that's not all, right? So
Yeah.
the way or the best place I can think about is like, you think of the beach, right? A lot of sand. You pick something up, right? That's just small portion of everything. So
Yeah.
the point of it is to change your mindset from a scarcity mindset to an abundance.
Okay.
So for me is everything comes in abundance towards me. So that's kind of my money mantra or
Okay.
yeah.
Man, I never thought of that. But if I had to come up with one on the fly, like right now, it would be
Yeah.
it would be to, and that's a tough one. Maybe this isn't even a money mantra, but it's in line with what I just shared. It's like, if you we all need money to survive and live, right? Just for our basic necessities here on the earth. But I truly feel that if you do what you love, and it involves also like giving to others, then the money's gonna follow, if that makes sense. Especially if it's a good like business model or whatever. But yeah, at the end of the day, do what you love, be happy, the money will follow, especially if you're using some of that money for good. I'll turn that into a model and then message it to you.
No worries. No, but I think I agree. If you function, if you're running your business with integrity,
Yeah.
honesty, and everything, like eventually it will pay off because
Yeah.
people see that you're real, and then over
Right.
time they'll see those that aren't, and they'll come back to you.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Totally.
all right, Hector. Well, I guess this is the time that you can promote yourself. Where can we follow you, or where can
Yeah.
can get more about you?
So let's see. you can follow the design agency at New Creative, and that's Neue. It's the German word for new,
Yeah.
New, but
Like the
New
museum?
Creative. Yeah, yeah. No, no,
Yeah.
new, like New. Museum?
Museum, yes. Yeah,
Okay. So that's New Creative. That's everywhere online at New Creative or newcreative.com. The coffee shop is also OSO, which means bear in Spanish. Online, I'm everywhere as also.coffee. So there's no .com. It's just I purchased the .coffee domain. And then, man, there's a lot. I have it. You know how many Instagram accounts I have, bro? But I'll only share one more. If you want to follow the stuff that I do for dogs, because I've been doing, that's like a whole other show right there. I totally
I know.
forgot.
I'm gonna have to invite you back. Yeah.
I totally forgot that.
Hector, the activist, the dog whisperer. Yeah.
Well, so that's when I say that's a whole other story in itself. It really is, because I love dogs so much that, you know, some people want to have friends over for barbecue. I had this idea once of inviting friends over, but their dogs, I wanted them to bring their dogs. And we had like a little dog hangout in my backyard. Man, like 30 people showed up with all their dogs. 2 years later, that turned into my first dog festival. And then this past spring, we celebrated 10 years of being one of the biggest dog festivals in the country, bro.
Wow.
And that's a business. Like, I do this, one, because I love dogs, and it allows me to help like a lot of dog rescues, but it's an income generating business. So, so the Instagram for that is Dog Pop HTX.
Dog Pop HTX.
Pop. Yeah.
Okay. Pop. Okay.
So that's it. I'll only give y'all 3 Instagram accounts. In there,
Yeah.
you'll see the other 20 Instagram accounts that I have.
Yeah, no, I'll add those handles in here on the
Okay.
replay. But yeah, I mean, I
Cool.
appreciate your time. I know we've been chatting
Yeah.
about this for a while, and I'm so
Yeah.
happy to
Not-
to share. People were giving you shout outs earlier about
Okay.
that was my youth pastor. You know, people know you in the community, so and it's
Yeah.
people were saying they're happy that they're knowing your story, and I think
that's
part of
tight.
it. Go ahead.
No, that's cool. I didn't see it here on my screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's pretty exciting, man. It speaks
cool.
a lot about you. Oh,
No, that's cool. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I mean, that's kind of the point of this, to have
Right.
maybe you met Hector, maybe you went to his coffee shop, and now you know a little bit about him and his businesses, and stop by and say hi. It also is open Fridays through Sundays right now, right?
Friday through Sunday, 9 to 2. This Saturday, another guy who used to be a youth under me in the 90s as a youth, I was his youth pastor. He has his own business making homemade empanadas. Bro, they're so good. Like, they're so good, seriously. He's going to be back Saturday now on a regular basis. So this Saturday, he'll be here from 9 to 2 out front. He makes them and then fries them fresh right there on site. Man, they're so good.
So there you go. If you're
Yeah.
looking for good coffee and good empanadas,
Yeah.
get your fix.
Yeah. But no,
yeah,
I want to
thanks a lot.
thank you too, bro, for doing this. Like, I appreciate you feeling like that I qualified to be on this show. So thank you.
No, I mean, part of it is I get inspired, right? Especially if it's someone that looks like me and came from a similar background, right? Like, it's to show other people, right? Not to say, like, regardless of where you come from or social status,
Yeah.
a lot of it is just seeing people that are doing it, right? And being like, hey, I'm from the East, and I can do that too, So part of it is getting getting your story out there, which is important. I think humans, the unique thing about humans is that we all have stories, and we have stories to share. And we love, coffee. Tenfold, what's up? We like Tenfold.
Tenfold's my roaster, bro.
This is a shameless plug, but me and my wife run another account called Caffeinated Couple. So we've been hitting up different coffee shops in Houston, and that's kind of our thing. So hopefully in the future, just like you, that could be something that we could also
have y'all made it to Tenfold?
You made it, yeah, we have. Yeah.
So Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
So Tenfold is owned by Jacob Ibarra, who's a Latino. And bro, people come in not all the time, but on a regular basis, other roasters approach me. Hey, we'd like to send you some of our beans or whatever. I was like, well, I just want to be upfront. I love my roaster, but more than that, I love my relationship with him as a friend.
Yeah.
I'm happy the quality is like way up here on the coffee. So send me your coffee, I'll taste it, but I'm not going to change roasters. So
Yeah. No, definitely. I might have to. You might have to be next here in the interview.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah, hit him
Give
up.
me some love, Hector. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Alrighty.
All
Well,
right.
man. Yeah. Thanks again for your time, Hector. And I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll we'll stop by soon. And
Okay.
but point of it was for everyone else to see this and be
Right.
inspired and go after what they're. I don't want to sound cliche about chasing your passion, but definitely
Yeah.
do things that you're interested in with being ethical about it, and it'll pay off if that's
Yeah.
what you're looking for. So
Totally. All
all
right.
right, well,
Appreciate it,
cheers.
bro. Thank
All
you.
right, have a good
All
night.
right. See you
Take
later.
care.